The story begins with a disgusting 30-year-old man entering his smelly room, ready to escape his pointless life in a new virtual reality video game. You see, video games make him feel young again, and he can do things that he could never do in real life. He names his character Earth and gives him similar features to himself, boring ones at that, but he does this purposefully as he doesn't want to stand out, being the type who doesn't want to be the main character himself. In the real world, he's a salaryman, so he's limited to the amount of time he can play. Earth is worried that this might cause trouble for the basement dweller gamers if he tried to play with them. So when it came to picking his special abilities, Earth decided to choose skills that were extremely underpowered, in the hopes that the hardcore crowd wouldn't pay much attention to him. Out of his 10 skills, 6 are underpowered. He chose medicine, but potions are available cheap from NPCs, so it's pretty much worthless. He also chose kick, which has no special perks, and you can't beat an enemy in just one hit with it. He even chose archery, though bows are known to have terrible accuracy. His improved physical abilities skill supposedly gives a bonus to things like using a weapon, running, or crafting. But the bonus is insignificant because the skill is so broad, and if someone wants to be strong they should choose more specific skills. He chose a couple of more god-awful abilities, and with that, Earth has successfully created one of the worst characters in the game. But this is how he wants it, so other people won't want to play with him, and he can relax and play his own way. Time for Earth's first login, and he's excited. The game is called One More Free Life Online, and like the name says, you can enjoy another free life in it. You don't have to complete any beat the final boss type of quests, so players are free to spend all their time fighting monsters, crafting cool stuff, or even just hanging out and talking to other players. It's a game for people who want to live another life, and on the first day the place is completely packed. Upon Earth's arrival, a random girl calls out to him trying to sell him some equipment. However, just then, a party of heroes appear in the sky showing off their abilities. Earth notes how there aren't any other archers apart from him. But suddenly a guy dressed in gold-plated armor appears behind him and begins scolding the newbie. Earth thought what an unlucky way to start his first day, and the guy patronizes him for picking a bow because they're so useless, going on to call him an idiot weirdo with the face of a loser. After humiliating Earth in front of everyone, the guy decides to leave, and Earth says, "I guess they didn't like my bow." People here don't seem to like archers, but Earth believes that's better for him. Next, Earth visits the training hall and gets excited upon seeing everyone working hard practicing, so he whips out his garbage bow to give it a try. He draws the bow back and takes a shot, but completely whiffs and hits the floor. He tries again and again but can't even hit the damn target. And Earth realizes the bow is even worse than he'd thought. Finally, he manages to at least hit the target after firing 100 shots, and ranks up to a level 5. Earth then tries his kick skill, which has gotten a lot stronger. He also tries out his wind spell, which he notes is a lot more accurate than the bow. Now with the minimum skills he needs to survive, Earth heads out into the field but sees that it's a mess with all the new players. So instead he decides to focus on gathering some herbs. He turns the other way, and at that moment his long distance vision skill activates, which points to exactly where the herbs are. However, even after picking them up, he gets no info on what it is, so he decides to go back and appraise it. At first, he kept messing up and losing his herbs before he could identify them, but he started to get the hang of it pretty quickly. As his medicine level goes up, he's able to figure out which category an herb goes in. His only problem is that he found 2 suffocation herbs, descripted as whoever eats this will instantly stop breathing and die. This makes him mad as he wonders what on earth the devs were thinking putting this item of death in the first area, but is relieved he learned how to appraise things before using them. Next, Earth went to a potion store to buy a beginner's medicine crafting set. After carefully following the instructions, he manages to craft a common healing potion, the most basic of all healing items. He also crafted a common anti-poison potion, and with that his medicine skill goes up to level 7. Now it's time to go hunting, so he ventures out to hunt and spots his first monster, a horned rabbit. Earth knows he needs to aim his first shot well because of the bow's cooked accuracy. He misses his first shot and the rabbit charges at him, so quickly he fires another arrow, wounding its arm but not stopping it completely. However, with a swift kick he sends the rabbit flying, finally killing it and making it his meal. Just then, 2 other players arrive, a blue-haired girl and her friend who is laughing like crazy at Earth. He tells him that he's killed several rabbit horns but has never seen them make noises like this one did when it was kicked, which he finds hilarious. The red-haired maniac introduces himself as Sway, and the girl is called Millie. They soon leave after friending each other and decide to party up sometime later. Earth then uses his numerous skills to hunt more monsters, and makes use of his wind magic to defeat another rabbit horn. He then remembers his sneak skill, which he finds he's able to attack much more accurately and quickly while using it. Later, Earth spends his free time cooking the meat in his inventory, but is trying to perfect it to get a higher score. He experiments with it and finally lands a score of 7 on his steak. However, the village becomes distracted by the luscious aroma and they all rush to him. Earth sees this as an opportunity to get rich and increase his cooking level, so he works on making himself a new bow to hunt with because there is no supply or demand for them. So he has to make one himself, and gradually Earth is mastering all of his weak skills without even realizing. He then remembers that he just spent most of his cash to buy armor, so to recoup that money, he decides to use the game's vending machines to try and start selling grape-flavored healing potions, and see if players would like them. Later he heads out to the field to hunt some monsters. While analyzing a few nearby, he chooses the wolf since it's the closest. Earth activates his sneak skill and fires with his bow. He then proceeds to his next hunt, training his kick and wind magic skills as well. He manages to defeat several monsters, acquiring various types of items and increasing the levels of his 3 attacks. However, after hunting so much, he runs out of arrows and decides to call it a day. Upon returning, he sees that the town is filled with people begging for potions, but he is confused since potions are cheap and easily available from NPCs. He calls Zwei and discovers that NPCs have run out of potions, so now everyone will want to come after Earth for his. Later, Zwei and Millie show up to help him with crowd control so he can easily focus on making more potions. After selling out for the day, he tells everyone to come back tomorrow. But the bullies from earlier arrive and start fighting with Zwei, as Earth refused to serve them for not standing in queue and waiting for their turn. Earth warns him that he will end up making an enemy of everyone if he continues with this attitude. But the Mohawk guy doesn't seem to take the hint and challenges him to a duel. Despite Zwei warning Earth, he accepts the challenge. He believes he's at an advantage because his opponent is arrogant, and this will give Earth a chance to hit him in his weak spot. Earth shifts to the side for a swift dodge and then attacks him up close, taking him out like a boss. The crowd cheer him on while the bullies decide to run away, and Earth tells everyone that he will open up shop again tomorrow and logs out for the day. Since the disappearance of potions, medicine is no longer considered a useless skill, and is now one of the most demanded ones in the game. Earth ends up accepting Zwei's invite since he is the guild master of blue color, and he introduces Earth to the rest of the members. One of them is a girl named Nora, who claimed to be skilled in melee combat using short blades. Next, he met Rage, a tank wielding an axe and shield responsible for drawing enemy attacks. Finally, Earth met Casimir, a one-handed swordsman. After getting to know everyone, Earth began to introduce himself. However, everybody already knew he was an archer. Zwei explained that he had become quite famous among players after winning the duel against the Mohawk guy, so he skips his introduction, but asked if the group was indeed balanced since they had 4 frontline members and Millie is a magic user. However, Nora tells him that Millie can use more than one skill, and she can also use healing magic. Earth is then told that they will go hunting for a rare wild bear today, and they are counting on him for his support. Zwei even announces that Earth will be the one cooking for them after their hunt, although Earth is worried since a wild bear is a strong and tough opponent. Earth uses his vision skill to spot them but only finds them in groups. Eventually, he finds a bear that is all alone, so they plan out a strategy to defeat it. Earth sneaks in from behind and attacks the bear, which makes it go into a rage and charge after him. Rage steps in to divert his attention and activates his aggro control. Monsters have hidden parameters which can help determine who they are mad at, so Rage will direct the bear's anger towards him and protect the others. This will give Earth the chance to aim and attack from a hidden spot. They all rush in to attack the bear using their different powers, but it overpowers them and Earth realizes they are in a weak position. So he trusts in his 38 years of experience and makes the decision to attack the bear between its eyes, since he thinks that might be its weakest point. But once his arrow hits, it makes the bear even angrier. So Earth uses his skill he acquired at level 15 of wind magic, and goes all out. His speed intensifies and he kicks the bear on its forehead. He then signals to Millie to use her fire lance skill, and finally they kill off the bear. Zwei then apologizes to the members for taking them on a hunt without assessing its danger completely. But Earth tells him not to worry and they should head over for lunch as he is treating them. He makes them wolf kebabs and they all seem to love it, so Zwei suggests that Earth will be their new cook from now on. However, Earth isn't too pleased about this. He then goes to hunt on his own, but ends up running into a large rock ant which has a linking ability, which it uses to call back up. And Earth ends up getting wrecked since they can deflect damage. He ends up back in the town as a penalty for dying, but just then, all the players receive a message about a new update in the game. which reveals that they will now be assisted by fairies on their missions. They will also be getting brand new weapons and skills. Earth works his way out of his penalty and ends up learning blacksmithing, where he builds an arrowhead that can pierce the rock ant's head. He uses 2 different types of iron to make an iron arrowhead, which will give him a level 7 attack when combined with a wooden arrow. He also made a heavy blunt arrowhead which has an attack level of 8. He also upgrades his shoes by placing thorns underneath them, and builds ice skates with extra sharp blades. Earth's archery level has reached 30, so now he wants to specialize and he opts for the hunting bow as it has the same range and powers that Earth has been using. He then makes a unique bow in the shape of an X. This bow will strengthen his attacks against the monsters. The next day, Earth takes out his new bow for a test on his hunting. He finally spots a rock ant and launches his attack. He strikes one arrow that causes fatal damage to the ant, and wastes no item to shoot his iron arrowhead, which kills it off in an instant. He then gets rid of all the rock ants, and collects their exoskeleton to later help him with building armor. It is time to make a contract with their fairies, and Earth is excited, so he begins the ritual, but is left disappointed when the crystal glass breaks halfway. He shows it to Zwei, and is shocked to see that everyone was successful in making contact with their fairies. But Millie assures him that he still has a chance since the second half remains, and the crystal has not disappeared. What surprises the other members is that all the fairies have taken a liking to Earth, and are clinging on to him. They are furious and call him a fairy player for using his riz on their fairies. Fairies have been extra friendly towards him, but he tells one that he can't make a contract with her since his crystal is broken. Just then, Earth sees that his skills have gone up, so he decides to enter his first dungeon. He walks through the darkness of the cave, reminiscing about exploring places like this when he is a child, having fun knowing he can relive this experience thanks to the game. However, now it is even more thrilling. Suddenly, in a darker section, Earth encounters a giant spider. He shoots an arrow at the creature and then unleashes several wind magic attacks, but the spider only suffers minimal damage. So he attempts to strike using his high jump skill but accidentally hits his head on the cave ceiling. Nevertheless, he recovers quickly, snares the spider with a rope, and delivers a kick, managing to defeat it. He celebrates the victory, although his head still throbs from the impact. At that moment, several dark fairies appear, and Earth realizes they want him to follow them. So, Earth follows the fairies, using a new ability called Gravity Center Stabilization, allowing him to traverse the path without stumbling. Later, he realizes he has finally arrived at the place the fairies want him to, as they have gathered in one spot, and are pointing towards a stone, so Earth moves it, and a secret door is revealed with a chest behind it. He finds an ancient ring hidden in the chest. Despite not knowing its purpose, Earth decides to keep it. He thanks the fairies for helping him find the item. Just then, he receives a game notification announcing that the second half of the fairy update will finally be revealed. Earth then heads to the city where the game announces that the name of this second half of the event is Battle with the Fairies. After participating in battles and PvP fights, fairies can evolve and take on new forms. The game emphasizes that this will only happen if players battle with different people, providing an excellent opportunity for them to get to know other players. Additionally, the top 16 in the PvP are invited to the tournament, with special prizes for the winners. Another update includes titles and distinctions that players receive based on their gameplay style. The game also informs that players like Earth, who have failed to acquire fairies, can restore their contract crystals through special PvP, not only guaranteeing success, but also offering a higher chance of obtaining a rare fairy. The game states that from now on, fairies will have a self-identity, leading to changes in their behavior. After the announcement, all players begin discussing the news, as there are many changes to digest. Earth notices that players are excited about the changes, but he fears that players might start bothering the craftsmen who do not have PvP. So he decides to pay Black a visit, but is relieved when Black tells him that the entire guild has decided to inform each other if someone picks up a fight with them. He then tells Earth about the new town that has been discovered, and it's called Nexia, where all the hardcore fighters have gathered to discuss strategy and fight in the first. So Earth decides to find someone he can fight with, but immediately catches attention because of his title. He sees that he has been given the title of Fairy Player, and the only way he can undo it is by fighting another player. So he desperately begs the players to challenge him and help him remove his title. Just then, Rona appears and accepts his challenge. She reveals that she is also a member of his guild, and has been wanting to meet him since Earth has a special kick ability, and Rona uses martial arts. But since fairies have a soft spot for Earth, Rona's fairy refuses to let them fight, and so do every other player's fairy. We later see Earth cooking several Karaj meals when he receives a call from Rona, but she is surprised to hear that Earth knew about the favor she was going to ask him. He then breaks down and screams that half of the server is asking him the same thing. A flashback shows that he helped out another player and cooked Karajas for his fairy, but the word spread and now he has endless orders. So Rona ends up helping him, and the other craftsmen lessen his burden by selling fairy food. Rona then suggests that they head to the new town and look around. When they arrive, they see a huge crowd has gathered, and they are all watching a fight between two players. But one of the players' wolf fairy seems odd to Earth. When the fight begins, the grump arrogant player obviously loses, but it's mainly because his wolf did not listen to him. Rona asks Earth about his odd behavior, so he tells her that it could be because the player is a slave fairy user and hurts the wolf. This is why it refused to listen to him, and he almost hit it again but held back. Because according to Earth, if fairies are hurt too much they can gain power and fight their master to death. They can then take away their crystal, and the player will be left without a fairy. The next day, the arrogant player pays Earth a visit and is feeling guilty for treating his fairy harshly. So he asks Earth for advice since he has the title of the fairy player. So Earth tells him to be gentle and friendly with his fairy. He should also involve his fairy in fights, adventuring and sharing meals, and then he might be able to win its favor back. So as a favor, Earth prepares a delicious meal and offers it to the man. He then feeds it to his wolf and gets emotional when he likes it. And when leaving, he thanks Earth for his help. Just then, an old-looking player named Silver appears and asks Earth to follow him where there are no people, so they can have a little chat. Silver asks Earth if he has met someone named Glad, but Earth can't recall anyone with that name. So Silver warns him about Glad, as he is targeting people with the Fairy Playa title, so Earth could be one of his next targets. Silver reveals that Glad was a member of his guild, but he lost his cool when he failed to make a contract with his fairy. So Earth realizes he is not the only one who failed to make a contract with a fairy. Just then, a light Valkyrie appears, who is a perfect humanoid fairy. Silver continues speaking and tells Earth that Glad was able to make a contract after the last update. But his fairy is a dark fox, so he is going around challenging people to duels. Silver is concerned that Glad is still resentful and believes everyone is looking down on him. He believes that he will show up at the last tournament and will go all out with his powers and fairy. Earth tells him not to worry and sends him off, but he still refuses to believe one side of the story. However, he will still be careful, so Earth decides to occupy himself with hunting, as it is against the terms of service in the game to challenge someone while they're hunting. He attacks the giant bear with multiple arrows, and finally shoots it down with the spikes under shoes and kills the wild bear for good. The new bow art that Earth learned has been really helpful to him in hunting. Earth then gets an upgrade on his kick art, and his first job for the day is to hunt for ore in the mines of Nexia, which he can use to make light metal and steel. He almost blows up an explosive ore, but manages to safely keep it in his bag, because if it exploded they all would have died on the spot. He then spends the whole night building weapons from the ores he collected. He ends up making a twisted dagger arrow in a metal belt with spikes that can be used to whip and attack the monsters. He then spends the rest of the day experimenting with the explosive ore and finally invents 2 types of oil until he finds the right one and names it the enhanced oil. He uses the oil to cause severe damage to the wild bears, and then immediately attacks them with his arrows, killing all 3 of them together. He then receives an update that he has reached level 50 in both wind magic and hunting bow, so he can now use them together as Aeolian Dust hunting bow. It is an elemental weapon that lets you add magical properties to weapons. He accepts the update and puts it to test, and sees that it lets him shoot accurately, and has increased his speed too. Earth is back in town when the game announces the final players for the tournament. But Sway tells Earth that he doubts anyone from his guild made it. Surprisingly, Silver and Glad are at the top of the list, and Earth is excited to see their fierce battle. All the players have gathered at the arena to watch the top players battle it out. Earth uses his long-distance vision, and finds that there are many players who have a similar title to his. Just then, it is time for the most awaited match. Silver and Glad are facing one another, and Glad is as arrogant as he had been described, so he tells Silver to give up on him. But they are both persistent, and the match begins. However, Glad is quick to dodge Silver's attack as he has seen his tricks multiple times. But Silver is almost the same strength as him, and with the help of his fairy he is able to cause damage to Glad. However, when their fairies fight, Glad emerges as the winner, and his fairy ends up evolving and turns into a full human fairy. But she refuses to be with Glad for another moment. She explains that the purpose of this tournament was to find a player who is worthy of being a ruler. But Glad clearly lacks those qualities, and he is not the slightest bit glad to hear that from his fairy. She has now become the Queen Fairy and is talking as if she is a real person, not AI. But Glad refuses to accept her decision and challenges her to another fight. She agrees, but on the condition that he won't be given any extra money or a new fairy. The Fairy Queen launches several attacks as soon as the fight begins. She even electrocutes him, and then she finally lands her last attack at him, which leaves him powerless and exhausted. She leaves him to dwell on his embarrassment as he only has 1 HP left. Just then, Silver appears and she lets him take over, so he walks up to Glad and apologizes to the Fairy Queen for not helping out with Glad sooner. She then summons the 3 fairy players including Earth, but only gives the 2 girls their fairies as a reward for not choosing to fight. However, Earth's reward is more of a punishment when she tells him that he will be fighting her. The fairy says that since he's been at the event the whole time without a fairy, she would like to ensure that Earth gets a better reward, so they would fight. Regardless of the outcome, she would donate some of her powers. Earth accepts the challenge, and everyone in the arena eagerly awaits the fight. He prepares for the battle by organizing his items and planning the best way to win. It wouldn't be easy, as was evident in the previous fight. The Fairy Queen has mastery over very powerful magics, like the High Explosion. He has a slight advantage because he has already seen her fighting style, and she probably has never fought an archer before. However, that wouldn't be enough due to his poor abilities. Besides, he couldn't prolong the fight as the fairy could adapt quickly. Thus, he comes to the conclusion that the only way to win would be to play dirty. The fairy asks if he's ready, and he responds in the affirmative. The combat begins, and the blue dome of the arena rises as soon as the clock marks the start. Archer moves and uses his sliding charge to distance himself from the opponent. Already at a reasonable distance, he uses his bow to shoot an arrow with 70% of its strength just to initiate and test the Fairy Queen's abilities. When he fires, the fairy uses the Winter Cutter to cancel the archer's attack and neutralize the arrow's strength. He thinks that maybe if he uses full force, he can hit her, but without much time to think, the fairy launches the Fire Lance, and Earth needs to dodge this attack made of fire arrows coming from above. While he dodges, he shoots an arrow that pierces the fairy's attack and hits her squarely in the shoulder, nullifying her magic. In the stands, his friends watch this excitedly and are impressed by Earth's speed and power. The Fairy Queen realizes that continuing the fight at that distance would be very disadvantageous for her. She then uses her Wind Booster ability to advance at high speed towards Earth to get closer to her opponent. However, the fairy didn't anticipate that the archer was already expecting this move, as he had seen it in the fight against Glad. So, when the fairy is about to launch her shock, Earth quickly dodges horizontally and breaks one of his vials in the air with a death potion. This potion, made from asphyxiation herb, produces a toxic purple mist that hinders the fairy and prevents her from casting any magic. With this, Earth gains time to throw more explosive potions. The fairy recognizes that not restricting the use of items was a mistake, and Earth states that weak humans like him need to think carefully about how to defeat someone much stronger. She then conjures the Earth Wall ability to protect herself from any threats, but she also can't attack. Earth disappears, and his friends notice that he has used his Consume ability inside her stone defense. The fairy waits for Earth's attack, but he remains still. She can even feel his presence and imagines she's waiting for her magic to run out, so to surprise her he appears from behind and uses his steel whip to restrain her. He then shoots multiple different arrows at her, such as his twisted arrows, and then lands his final blow at her using his kick art. She has no energy left to fight and ends up being defeated by Earth. As soon as the fight ends, Earth remembers that he was fighting in front of a huge crowd, and is not happy about the attention he is getting. All his plans to stay low-key in this game have backfired. But as promised, the Fairy Queen asks him for his crystal and the ring he found earlier. She reveals that it belongs to the Fairy King, so he hands her over those 2 items. She then places the ring on the crystal and calls upon the Children of Light. She then merges the 2 items and makes it into a ring. She then forces Earth to wear it, and it turns out that it cannot be unequipped. She deliberately put it on his ring finger, expressing some sort of love she has developed for him in the last hour. However, it is revealed that the ring contains the power of the 6 elemental fairies, but Earth fails to see the brighter side, and is upset that it cannot be unequipped and throws a tantrum. After the fight, Earth gained popularity, and his weak skills were now seen as valuable as players realized that wind magic and archery work well together. So to escape all the annoying players who have become his fans, Earth decides to practice in a remote place. But the Fairy Queen appears out of nowhere and reveals that the ring also allows her to teleport. So now he has got someone in love with him, and she is not planning to leave his side anytime soon. Earth is later seen roaming around the town, but he is now referred to as the Fairy Queen's husband. He fears that he might intimidate other players, so he ignores a man calling out for him. We see that Earth had asked the Fairy Queen to explain how Prism Nova magic worked, an ability only accessible to those with the ring. She replied that he would have to discover the proof himself. In a forest, he captured a bear with his steel whip and invoked the magic, asking the fairies to fulfill his wish. During the incantation, he offered some of his mana to the fairy governess so that she would grant him the power. A circle defining the area of effect appeared, and he placed the bear right in the center. Then, he activated his Prism Nova enchantment, creating a ball of light over the marked area that hit the target and transformed everything inside. He tested the enchantment several times on other bears and discovered that this ability had a random effect. Later, while Earth was cooking, the fairy confirmed that many status effects could occur, with the rarest being paralysis and petrification. Moreover, the cooldown time was long, so he needed to be careful. The fairy looked at one of the delicious dishes Earth was cooking and tried to take a bite, but he smacked her head with a fan, saying they were for sale. The Fairy Queen asked him to let her eat, as the fairy realm's food was all sweet, and she wanted to taste other things. She threw a tantrum and complained about the duties of being a queen, sometimes wishing it were different. The man that Earth had ignored earlier in the village appeared, angry with Earth for not talking to him. He introduced himself as Nazar, a member of the Bow of Apollo Guild. He and the other members were working towards a grand goal, the salvation of oppressed archers. He believed that Earth suffered because he was excluded and not part of any guild, but Earth couldn't care less about what he was saying and left with the Fairy Queen after he was done eating. He is able to get rid of the Fairy Queen by sending her with a few dishes, and decides to work on upgrading his weapons. The next day, Black and his fellows have gathered to watch Earth since he is the new celebrity in town, so he lets them be. He starts working on his X-type bow, and also changes up the material and spikes of his blade shoes. He is later seen receiving a message from the Guildmaster of the Bow of Apollo, so he decides to pay them a visit and is greeted by the Guildmaster, who introduces herself as I Am. She begins off with apologizing for Nazar's behavior, and further reveals that he used Earth's name to recruit other members, so he has been punished. But Earth tells her not to worry and also has no objection accepting Iam's invite to her guild, as they are all arches. When he leaves, he realizes that the battle vastly affected everyone in the game, even though he just wanted to be Loki. We see a man talking about Earth and how he is a player they are going to have to keep an eye on. We later see Earth meeting up with Sway and Millie, who tell him that there has been a new update in the game which can paralyze other players, and it can be triggered if the player takes more than 25% of damage on their arms. Just then a new update is announced that the game will be opening up randomly generated dungeons, and they will only have an hour to survive and reach its 10th floor. But failure to do so can result in instant death. So Earth realizes he needs to improve his shields, as he won't have enough room to move around in the dungeons and escape the attacks. He is later seen practicing on various monsters, and he has specialized in the shield skill of small shields, which also makes it easier for him to use his bow. He once again spends days making unique bows and weapons, and invents a secret light metal shield which also has a transformation ability. The special features of this shield will not leave him at a disadvantage if he gets hit with the break arms and loses his ability to move. His shield can still work for a while longer and shoot arrows. After installing the new update, Earth is all ready to enter the dungeon and sees a huge crowd as well as merchants selling potions. But he is interrupted by a cheaper version of Power Rangers, and they ask Earth to join him since they are short on one member. So Earth evaluates his options and thinks that it might not be a bad idea after all to have some support in the dungeon. Although he is weirdly annoyed by their role play, he still tags along with them. Upon entering, Earth tells them to hold up and follow his lead since he detected 15 traps in that room, out of which 4 were instant death. So they follow behind him, and praise Red for recruiting Earth on a short notice, as he is wise and is the Fairy Queen's husband for good reason. Earth, however, is still not happy about other players talking about him. He then lets the fake Power Rangers take the lead, and all they do is tiptoe until they run into a bunch of possessed skeletons with weapons. They waste no time and charge right ahead, and get rid of the skeletons, instantly leaving Earth impressed. So he tells them that he will disarm the traps, but they have already wasted 18 minutes to find the staircase leading to the 2nd floor. Upon reaching, they run into skeletons again, but Pink tells them she can handle it, and uses her spell to attack them. However, it doesn't work on them as they are whites and different from the previous ones. So Earth instructs Blue and Pink to aid him using their magic, as he has the Aeolian Dust Arrow, which is effective against them and finishes them off. Since they have already wasted 40 minutes, Earth proposes that they aim for the 5th floor instead of the 10th, and they all agree. But suddenly they hear other players calling for help and rush right in through the door even though Earth tells them not to. Once they enter, the door traps them and Earth realizes they can't leave until they complete the quest. He turns to see them surrounded by several skeletons, but also analyzes their threat and sees that they don't pose any severe danger, so he can take them out using his arrows. They all help out each other using their powers and emerge victorious. However, one of them is persistent to open the chest, but Earth tells him to be careful. But he doesn't listen, so Earth suggests that he opens once they all leave. All the Power Rangers follow after him, and Earth reveals that the second trap is the one that kills you with your own greed. But Earth was able to identify the trap since his level is well above 30 in thief skills. Earth then spends the next few days building weapons that will help him disarm traps quickly and move through the floors. Just then, he runs into the Fairy Queen and he is not pleased to see her. She tells Earth that she is out giving contract crystals to the new adventurers, but he immediately smacks her when she moves in to kiss her. We later see her return after Earth is done building his weapons, but she seems exhausted since she has been having battles with multiple people, so she can get them off her back with personal questions. She even had a marriage contract prepared for Earth to sign, but he refuses yet again. However, he feeds her a meat bun to calm her down, and she rests on his lap and thanks him for being a good husband. Our Fairy Queen is apparently the queen of delusionals. We see Earth being hit with a stun attack, which paralyzes him. A flashback then shows that several days prior, Earth went into the dungeons on his own to improve his lockpicking and trap disarming skills. After several days of practice, Earth was able to increase his thief skill level to 50 and then updated to Benevolent Thief, which allows him to steal from monsters. We see Earth and the Black Ranger finally met and seemed to work well, which impressed the other Rangers. Earth was able to learn the dungeon's tricks by going solo, and was able to drastically reduce the time that took him to reach the 9th floor. He even avoided useless battles by realizing that monsters are attracted to light, so he carried an oil lamp with him. With only 5 minutes to spare, he decides to work his way through the liches on the 9th floor and see how far he can get. He realizes that liches have the ability to summon other monsters, so he is careful to dodge them since he can't fight them on his own. He then finds the opening to the 10th floor's staircase but senses danger all around it. But he doesn't have enough time, so he chooses to fly over and lands on the danger tile, but is quick to react and jumps right through the staircase. He realizes that the dungeon didn't throw him out, and with only 2 seconds left on the timer, it stops and he is given time to heal himself. Earth thought he was the only one to make it that far, but he is surprised to hear someone speak to him in the endless staircase. Though Earth cannot see him, he can hear him, and the voice introduces itself as Andre, the Knight of the Empire. He praises Earth as he didn't think any player could reach this level on their own, so he instructs him to listen to his tale carefully, as it will tell him more about this labyrinth dungeon. He reveals that he led his army to discover the truth of this dungeon and seal it, but all his comrades died and he was the last one standing. But when he reached the last room, there was nothing there, not even air to breathe, and he died in vain and was made a guardian of this dungeon. So Earth asks what he wants from him, so Andre tells him to kill him when he finds him at the bottom of the staircase. Just then, all the stairs disappear and he falls right down. When he gets up, he is facing Andre in his skeleton form, who is ready to fight him head on. But Earth is not one to give up easily, and prepares himself. But Andre is quick with his attacks, and Earth ends up slightly wounded. So he uses his potions to surround Andre with flames, which gives him the opportunity to attack him with his bow. This does cause Andre several injuries, but he hits Earth back with the break arms, and tells Earth to give up. However, he is quick to dodge his attack and charge right towards him using his secret bow, which isn't invincible. But Andre is furious with Earth moving so much, so he uses his shield chaser to escape and attack Earth with stun. And this is how Earth ended up in this position. But before Andre could land his final attack, Earth escapes and tells him of a human's unwavering will. So Andre challenges him to show his will, and Earth then uses his triangle shot. He then uses his diagonal kick after creating an illusion, and brings out his steel whip to dodge Andre's sword, which gives him enough time to use his Prism Nova on him. He then calls out on all the fairies around him to grant his wish and help him defeat Andre, and ends up activating the Elder Prism Nova, completely surrounding Andre with his magic. When the smoke settles, Earth desperately hopes that his incantation worked, but Andre is still alive. However, just then the Fairy Queen appears and uses her powers to freeze over Andre's body, and disappears, which gives Earth the chance to shoot all his different arrows at him. He then throws his explosives at him, which causes Andre's mask to fall off and shift him back to his true form. He praises Earth for emerging victorious and defeating him, which lets him meet his end in his human form. He tells Earth that God is real as it brought him so much luck that his comrades came to get him. As a parting gift, he gives his sword to Earth and departs. The game makes an urgent announcement that by defeating one of the secret bosses, Earth has unlocked a new weapon which is the Knight's Sword and has a high attack score. This also means that there are other secret bosses, since Andre was only one of them. We later see Earth bidding farewell to his weapons as they are beyond repair. He was able to restore his shield, but he still needs money to buy his weapons. But he is glad about the sword he got from Andre, and he can now take a break from fighting solo. In a dimly lit room, a woman asserts that player PN0E seems to be having fun, and the man she's talking to responds that his learning seems to be progressing rapidly thanks to that archer, and they need to thank him. The woman reveals that she has a problem because PN1AB is complaining about getting bored. The man gives a mischievous smile and allows her to take a walk. We later see Earth with Sway and the other members from the guild waiting outside the dungeon for another mage. A super ugly blondie with an attitude appears and Sway introduces her as Eliza. He does warn Earth about her rude attitude, so he is cautious and feels pity for Sway. Once they enter the dungeon, Earth disarms the majority of the traps. They then head onto the 5th floor and Sway suggests they take a break, but Eliza refuses since they are already short on time. Just then, Earth warns them about 12 monsters including liches approaching them, so they all take their position. Rage distracts them by using Argo skills but is soon hit with the Break Arms curse and is petrified. Everyone is occupied with using their powers and attacks on these monsters, and they call out to Eliza for help. If she fails to heal Rage, then the monsters will be distracted and they will all end up in a very bad position. But the overconfident blondie is shocked to the core and is unable to help until Earth steps in and creates a distraction by using explosives on them. This wakes her up and she rushes over to heal Rage. This gives all of them the upper hand once again and they successfully get rid of all the monsters. After a long tiring day, Sway thanks Earth for his help as they all got great rewards out of it. They see each other off, but we see a girl watching them from afar and smiling. The next day, Earth is excited to learn of new Japanese-style weapons, Otachi, and thinks that Kazaim would love them since he is a samurai player. Just then, a woman with long blue hair appears and greets Earth. He realizes that her getup is quite unique, so she is not a player avatar. He asks about her, but she gives a vague response and tells Earth that she is like the Fairy Queen's sister. Earth immediately realizes that she is going to be a pain to deal with, but he lets her tag along to his armor shopping, and even makes her delicious meals later on. He also ends up giving her a personalized nickname, Ryu, since she is not willing to disclose her real identity. We later see Earth get a new announcement after he collects his new armor. According to the new update, players must specialize in only one skill moving forward so that it's the most powerful one for them. He later meets up with Black to discuss the situation and tells him that he prefers his current situation since he loves preparing meals for other players. The next day, the Fairy Queen appears and casts a barrier around her and Earth to discuss something urgent. She first apologizes to him because she cannot let him make a contract with a fairy, even with the 6 great ones she brought with herself. It turns out that the word spread in the Fairy Kingdom, and around 80 citizens wanted to make a contract with Earth because he is so loved by the fairies. So the Queen tells him that it would be chaotic if he makes a contract. Earth, however, is understanding about the situation, so the Fairy Queen grants him 2 special powers instead. The first one is 7 falling stars, which can allow the player to land 7 consecutive shots at the target. And the other power is a sacrifice bow which shoots a powerful arrow. It can be dangerous to use since it combines feelings, power and magic all into one and places it in the arrow. She then tells him that the path to the Fairy Kingdom will soon be opened, and she will be waiting for him to visit. As a token of gratitude, Earth sends them off with the delicious meals he prepared and tells them he will see them all in the Fairy Kingdom. It seems that Earth only logs in to cook instead of actually playing. He is once again making meals while all his friends are getting high on the aroma of his cooking. Just then, Ryu appears and asks for a bite, but he smacks her, and then smacks Sway too for teasing him. They are all pretty impressed with Earth's Riz game, as he not only swayed the Fairy Queen but is now a dragon babysitter too. We later see all the players head towards the Fairy Kingdom, and end up at the North Fortress. Just then, the leader of the Northern Fort comes to personally greet Earth and asks to show his ring to verify his identity. He then calls on a special bird Pikachu, which only a few selected fairies are allowed to ride. But Earth is not happy about the attention he's getting, so he chooses to ignore them and hops on the Pikachu. He reaches the castle in no time, and is greeted by the Fairy Queen. She then tells him to get ready for the parade she threw for him, and so the entire kingdom celebrates with Earth, who was also happy with these little memories he was making. The next day, he thanks the fairy queen for the warm welcome, but she tells him that she did this for the fairies and also to stop rumors about her keeping Earth all to herself from spreading. He tells her that he will be going to continue as a normal adventurer during his time here, and takes his leave. However, she suggests that they share the same bed, so he jumps out of the window as he feared for his life. He is then seen helping around town by hunting down rabbits and dealing with thief birds as well. Earth decides to stay at a tavern in Quest Giver where he can cook, and also use the inn on the second floor. He spent the next few days cooking as usual from the animals he killed, and spent quality time. However, one day the fort leader's stupid daughter arrives and they immediately hide Earth as they are well aware of her personality. She demands to see him so he can cook for her, but they all cover up for Earth and send her in the wrong direction. The owner of the inn then apologizes, but Earth is understanding of the situation, and even criticizes the fort leader for letting his daughter get away with her childish behavior. So he waits for nightfall to leave town silently, but when he comes across the two guards, he is shocked to hear them sympathize with him. They reveal that the people are gathering evidence to report her to the queen, and they even help him silently escape through the gate, after which Earth encounters a bear who tells him to hop on so he can give him a ride. The next day, the fairy queen is informed of the situation in the South Fort town and the leader's daughter, but she is shocked to her core to hear that the daughter exhibited inappropriate behavior towards Earth. Earth and the wild-haired Zetten finally reach another town that is popular for having different areas to promote various forms of art, and they are in the musical sector. They later check in a hotel and Earth finally gets to log out and falls asleep. Earth wakes up to find the fairy queen in her bed and tells her to get off immediately. But when he takes a closer look, he realizes that she has regressed to being an infant. Just then, a man walks in to call Earth for breakfast but gets the wrong idea about the two of them, and Zetten also appears as he hears Earth's cry for help. But the two of them are shocked to see a dragon in. Just then, the queen's sister smacks her on the head for being crazy obsessed with Earth, that she got revenge on the fort leader's daughter for him. Just then, a woman named Karen Fenrir walks in, and Zetten realizes that she is from a noble family because of her name. She tells them that her daughter has gone missing and she is worried that something bad has happened to her. The Fenrir family is a noble family of werewolves, so they both decide to head out and look for her. They are following up on a lead from a guard who said he saw her walk in a certain direction. Just then, Earth senses monsters and immediately prepares to fight them. After defeating them easily, Earth expands the search radius of his long-distance vision and finds two other creatures that are not monsters. He heads in that direction and finally locates Karen's daughter, Mina, who is surrounded by goblins. So Earth hands Zetten a special potion and instructs him to splash it on Mina. So Zetten charges in, while Earth backs him up and uses the potion on Mina, which immediately heals her wounds. Zetten then fights off the goblins with the help of Earth. Earth then asks Mina why she couldn't transform, but she herself is clueless, so he gives her a healing potion which allows her to transform. He then orders Zetten to take her back, while he has something he needs to deal with. After they leave, he calls out the imposter by throwing an explosive at him. He realizes that Mina was poisoned and attacked by the goblins this man sent. He is also worried that if he doesn't deal with him right now, he might go on to start wars and it will be chaotic. So he causes him severe damage from his kick powers and his killer shoes. After completely destroying him, he heads back to the forest and finds Zetten and Mina waiting for him as they knew what he was up to. Back at the hotel, both Karen and Mina are happy to be reunited, and Earth and Zetten are paid a hefty amount for finding her. Earth then requests Karen to let Mina spend time with Zetten since she admires him so much. The next day, we see that Mina is clinging on to Zetten, who has decided to move in with her. Earth thanks him as he is checking out and leaving the fairy kingdom. He summons Pikasha, who appears immediately to offer him a ride, and as a token of gratitude, Earth prepares a delicious meal for her. So she gives one of her feathers to Earth in return, which has the power to prevent him from feeling tired. He then heads back over to Black and informs him that he needs new weapons, so he spends the entire night building. We later see that Earth has gone out to test his new weapons, but suddenly receives an announcement where he is given a chance to an exclusive tournament, since he defeated the secret boss and freed the labyrinth from evil powers. But Earth refuses since he doesn't want to fight in public anymore. Just then, he hears a cry he hasn't heard before, so he goes deep into the forest and finds a baby dragon crying for help. When he takes a step closer, all the players surrounding the dragon disappear as they are dead. Earth picks up the baby dragon and wonders what to do with him, but he is afraid to catch too much attention. So for now, he focuses on feeding it. At first, the baby dragon is given a slice of meat, but Earth realizes that this may not be enough, so he hunts some more and prepares a feast for the dragon. However, he didn't realize how hungry it would be. Since Earth is confused, he summons the Fairy Queen for her advice. First off, she is shocked to see Earth fostering a wild red baby dragon. She then reveals that dragons are too powerful, so they stay within the borders of their kingdom. There are some dragons like her sister who are able to control their powers, but wild dragons have given up on that since they are too powerful to be restrained. And a red dragon implies that the baby belongs to the royal family and was probably kidnapped. Just then, a fairy arrives to warn the queen about 2 red dragons headed their way, and stops midway when she realizes the reason behind it. They all panic, but Earth knows he can talk it out with them. Once the 2 dragons arrive, they accuse Earth of kidnapping their child, but he tells them the complete truth, so they only decide to believe him if he willingly hands over their child. Once he places the baby dragon on the mother dragon's foot, they are able to see their child's memories and apologize to Earth for doubting him. They also ask him what he would like to be rewarded with in return for taking care of their child. So Earth that he wants the dragons to keep the fairy kingdom out of this since they are not at fault, and also wants them to stay silent about this whole situation so he doesn't grab any more attention. So they agree and leave back for their dragon kingdom. The Fairy Queen this time thanks Earth as the queen of her fairy kingdom, and not a 5-year-old girl talking to her crush. So he is proud of her and is relieved when she tells him that she will stay quiet about what happened. She then summons Pikasha for Earth, so that he can have a smooth ride to the town. Earth arrives at the eastern town in the fairy kingdom, and is upset to find out that there is barely any work for him to do there. So the lady who is the owner of the inn and restaurant offers him to do work for 1 day, so Earth decides to take up the job and ends up waiting on people as well as cooking for them. She then pays him for the day and he ends up at the inn to fall asleep. Somewhere else, we see the game developers agreeing to the decision of continuing one more. Since their subjects, both the Fairy Queen and Ryu, have shown significant changes in their personalities, and Earth has played an important role in making that happen. The next day we see Earth chilling in the field reminiscing about his childhood and how he missed out on all the fun activities. He got depressed thinking about it but was grateful for the virtual life this game was giving him. He later realizes that he shouldn't spend so much time alone, and misses his crazy friends. We later see him meeting up with the queen, and the man who introduces himself as a wild green dragon, who has the power to control wind and can even transform into a human. He informs Earth that the baby dragon, who is actually the young lady of the kingdom, has not been eating well. But Earth finds that hard to believe since she ate quite a lot when she was with him. So he decides to prepare a meal for the 2 of them, and the man goes nuts over his cooking. So he begs Earth to make more of those steaks so he can take it back to the Dragon Kingdom for the young lady. After he leaves, Earth once again jumps out the castle's window to escape the queen, who clearly can't keep it in her pants. We then see the young lady dragon finish up hundreds of those steaks that Earth had prepared for her. The wild green dragon was so moved by Earth's cooking that he tried to replicate it several times but failed terribly. He even thinks of asking permission to go and learn cooking from Earth, but is worried about his image since he is a dragon. We also see another green dragon watching him from a tree, and he seems furious. The green dragon transforms into an old man. Meanwhile, Earth logs in and wakes up next to the Fairy Queen cuddling him. So he wakes up angry and scolds her, but as usual she tries to act cute, even though it has no effect on Earth. He then goes out for a walk in the town, but is not pleased to see people saluting him. Just then, the old man from earlier appears and introduces himself as Emir, but Earth refuses to talk to him and lies about his identity. However, Emir is persistent and brings the Fairy Queen with him to confront Earth. But Earth is done dealing with dragons and finds an inn to escape so he can log out. When he logs back in the next day, he sees that the Fairy Queen has put out an arrest warrant for him because he tied her up. So we see Earth angry and fuming for the very first time. He marches down to the Fairy Queen's place and breaks down her door. He walks up to her and is extremely angry when he tells her to take off the ring she forcefully put on him. He then turns to face Emir, and also tells him that he can fight him if he wants to, but he will not be pushed around by dragons and cook for them. It seems that Earth has finally realized that he is an adventurer and not a chef, so the 2 of them battle it out. But Emir is too strong for Earth in his dragon form, and his attacks are the size of a needle to Emir. So Emir wastes no time and tells Earth that he will make him dance death and sends him flying with 1 attack. However, Earth is not someone who gives up and uses his twin-fanged arrow to shatter Emir's scale since he can't pierce them. Earth jumps up to evade, as he accepts that most of his attacks won't even scratch the tough armor of the dragon. He also knows that he will be in big trouble if he takes a single hit. This becomes a reality when Emir flies up and knocks him down. Earth contemplates using the suffocation herb, but he rethinks using it because it could eliminate him too if the wind blows back at him. He decides to shatter the creature's scales with 2 arrows since he's piercing it, but that attack doesn't work either. Emmer reveals that a dragon's scales are unbreakable as he goes in for another attack. Earth quickly activates his shield parry and barely manages to block the assault as he's sent flying. His shield shatters before his eyes, which makes the dragon laugh. Emmer suggests that the shield sacrificed itself to protect its master in one last show of loyalty. Earth remembers all the battles the shield has protected him through and can't believe it's gone now. He views it as Emmer eliminating one of his partners. He uses this as motivation to stand up and fight. The dragon is surprised that he can still stand up and fight. Earth pours a healing potion on himself and plans his next attack with renewed conviction. Emmer also decides to get serious and prepares to shoot a fire blast. Earth quickly counters by jumping and unloading several balls of his hellmine oil into the dragon's mouth. He also takes some significant damage from the explosion as his HP rapidly dwindles. Earth is surprised that he's still alive after landing. He notices that the dragon is dazed from his attack and follows up with the 7 falling star technique. Each arrow hits a body part of the dragon and is accompanied by a planet-themed explosion. Earth is a little shocked that the dragon survived that assault when Emmer lets out a roar, promising the player that he will regret launching that attack. The creature projects a wind attack that blows away parts of the landscape. Earth manages to use wind boost to find shelter behind a giant boulder, and uses sneak to hide his presence. He knows that the only way for him to win this fight is to use the second technique bestowed on him by the queen. The guy is a little reluctant because it means he will lose his bow, which he has had for a long time, but he makes the decision and combines his life force, magic, and feelings into the bow. This creates a powerful arrow. Emmer is stunned to see him alive as Earth alerts him that this attack will make him realize that dragons are not invincible. The dragon notes that Earth will also perish if he fires that arrow. The guy is aware of this fact because the name of the attack is Sacrifice Bow. Emmer puts up a wind barrier to block the arrow, but it overcomes his defense and puts a nice hole through his body. Earth thanks his weapon for everything as it disappears. He can't believe that the dragon still lives after taking that attack. He detonates multiple hell mine oils. The scene changes to the company's boardroom as the executives have another meeting regarding Earth's battle against the dragon. It is revealed that Emmer was the weakest dragon in terms of stats, but his old age was a factor. They contemplate nerfing Earth's oil, but some point out how that will discourage players from creating new things. They are even more shocked by how Earth was willing to sacrifice himself to win, even though it's a VR game and is very realistic. We learn that Earth defeated the dragon but lost his life in the process. His spirit watches over his body as he waits to be teleported to the last place he logged out. The king of the dragons arrives on the battlefield with his entourage. The creature applies an ointment on Earth's body, which gives him the option to be revived. He accepts the offer and asks the king why he revived him before his comrade. The red dragon apologizes for the situation. He explains that Emmer was a green dragon elder that got arrogant and began to mistreat others. He threatened to destroy the fairy and the human tails if the queen didn't put out a warrant for him. Earth is surprised to hear that the queen only put the warrant out to protect her subjects. The king of the dragons reveals that they came to ensure Emmer received punishment for his actions. They are impressed to see that Earth defeated him. The monarch assures Earth that they would have ripped Emmer apart themselves if the player hadn't beaten him. The red dragon also presents him with some rewards for the cooking he did for the princess. A few of the gifts are his way of apologizing for the Emmer situation. The system shows Earth the items and their dragon scale light armor set, 800,000 glow, and a mysterious bow. Earth tries the armor and can't believe how much more agile he is with it on. He also removes the bow, but he can't see the stats. The Dragon King reveals that it belongs to a fairy he faced in combat. It is a strange weapon that only recognizes those who meet its condition. Even though Earth can't equip it now, the red dragon hopes that one day the weapon will open its heart to him. The monarch knows that they need to win Earth's trust for the sake of his daughter. Earth collapses from exhaustion as soon as the dragons leave. He calls Picasa to give him a lift back to town, where he buys a new cape to match his outfit before proceeding to the queen's palace. He's informed that the queen fell into a state of shock after seeing how angry Earth became. He has an audience with the queen, who becomes animated when she sees him. She apologizes, but Earth assures her that there is no need because the Dragon King already informed him that she did it to protect her people. The player regrets his childish behavior, but the queen points out that this incident has made her realize that some of her interactions with him are inappropriate. As a way of apologizing, she is willing to do anything he asks. Earth pleads with her to seal the powers of the ring she gave to him. He doesn't like the special treatment and prefers to be Loki. The queen respects his decision and seals it. He promises her that they will see each other someday, but for now, he's heading back to the human kingdom. He says goodbye to the fairyland before he walks away, and this brings the anime to an end. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe with notifications on so you never miss out on any more of my recaps. Until next time, take care.